keep coming down, 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 right here, come on, come on, come on, come on, come on, come on. Oh yeah, oh, hell yeah. Man, I am so proud of you, dude.
And welcome back. Another episode of Historic Hot Laps. Got a lot to talk about on this episode. As anyone who's been involved in the NASCAR world saw at Richmond, we have quite a bit to discuss over the finish of that race. Little history lesson here and there, some news. So let's get it going. Go to the race recaps first. We're going to do this one a little out of order on this episode, being as it's a pretty dramatic finish to the Richmond Cup Series race. Anybody who hasn't seen that, probably go back and at least watch the highlights, but we're going to cover that race first as it's all over the news with how that finished. And I feel like as the week goes on, we're going to see some shakeups and some fines and penalties, and who knows what'll happen. So we'll start with the going into Richmond. Going into Richmond, you had option tires. Going into Richmond, you had option tires just like the All-Star race. Yellow sidewall was the standard harder compound tire, and then the red was the red sidewall softer compound tire. And this is NASCAR's attempt to make the racing and strategy a little bit better, and I think it helps. It really does. Going into it, the teams are really trying to figure out the strategy. What are they going to do? You've got 6 sets of yellows for race day and 2 sets of reds, so you really got to plan when you're going to use those reds. So going into qualifying and practice, the practice session, everybody was shocked to see that RCR and Austin Dillon had the fastest overall lap time in practice. They've had a rough year. We all know that. Obviously, Kyle Busch has had a rough year with them. Their equipment hasn't been up to par. It's been rough all around for RCR, and these things come and go. After qualifying, ends up in the third row on the outside, which was super impressive for them. Good momentum going into the weekend off that qualifying attempt. Hamlin ends up getting the pole, even though he was the slowest car of the 10 to advance to the second round of qualifying. So Chris Gabehart and the boys, they ended up getting a little adjustment made on that car, and Hamlin did his thing, and he ends up scoring the pole on that. Honestly, Richmond, if you're gonna bet on a for sure win, any of those Joe Gibbs cars were where it was at. But going into the race, let's just jump right in. Going into the race, stage 1, super clean, caution-free stage. Goes pretty quick with all the clean laps. Christopher Bell pretty well dominated and was lapping cars way before the end of stage 1. So then we go into stage 2. Now we got to start thinking tire strategies. Stage 2, Suarez and McDowell take the option tires on the first pit stop. They were kind of the gophers of, is this going to work? How are these tires going to hold up at Richmond? Obviously, it's different when you're at North Wilkesboro, but how is this softer compound going to work? And those tires were fast. Obviously, a softer tire is going to be faster. You're going to have more grip. You're going to have more control over your car, but they're going to deteriorate faster too. So going into it, you get Suarez coming out from 20th, and by 8 laps in after his pit stop, he goes from 20th up to 3rd. Give it a few more laps and he takes the lead. McDowell was 14 positions up in about the same amount of time from the back of the pack. So obviously these tires are working. Suarez is able to cycle in the middle of stage 2, get back on some yellows, and then as everybody else cycles in for their second set of yellows, he ends up on a good pit strategy and gets a stage win for stage 2. So going into the last stage, you got stage 1, Christopher Bell gets the points there. Stage 2, Daniel Suarez, which, by the way, Daniel Suarez has had a great week, running Brazil and everything else, and we'll cover that in some news. But yeah, so going into the final stage, pretty standard racing, and you can see RCR really breaking through. Austin Dillon takes the lead and just holds on to it. He's just holding everybody off. He's got a few seconds on the field. He's in lap traffic. He's putting on a bigger gap. And then we end up seeing Stenhouse Jr. and Ryan Preece get into it. So that one becomes tough because you bring out a caution late in the race, 2.5 laps or so to go, call it 3 to go. And under the rules, we hadn't seen a white flag yet, so we're going into overtime. Now, this is rough for RCR and Austin Dillon because they had the domination on that car for that stage. They were running good all day. Obviously, they were fastest in practice. They just had a good car overall. Nobody can deny that they had a good car. And the race was theirs to win at that point before that caution. Had that happened after the white flag, he would have been declared the winner. It would have been over with. We wouldn't have all this drama we're about to talk about. But you get Priest and Stenhouse Jr. into each other. All the lead lap cars go into pit. A lot of them are still holding on to a set of red option tires, the soft tires. That 3 team makes an incredible pit stop like they had done all night. One of the best pit crews in NASCAR currently is the guys in that number 3 car. They're good. So coming off of that during the yellow, keeps the lead coming off of pit road to start overtime. So then you get lane choice. So they're trying, Austin takes the bottom, which super speedways, most tracks, that seems like a good idea. Based on history, it's kind of a toss-up at Richmond. With this next-gen car, you can run a little differently there. That puts Joey Logano, who was fighting hard all day to get up front and stay up there. It puts him on the outside of the front. Take the restart, and Logano does the rollback on him, so he's rolled back and he gets a little bit of a jump. Dylan's a little behind anyway. He's not great at restarts. Everybody knows that. Anybody who can read the stats knows he's not good at restarts. Gives Logano the advantage coming into turn 1. By turn 2, Logano is taking the lead, and he's putting about a second on Dylan, and it looks like it's going to be Logano's. And then we get to the last lap. We take the white flag. We know it's going to be over. There's no other wrecks. You get to the last lap, setting up in 1 and 2. You can kind of see what's going to happen. I believe Burton called it on the broadcast and said he's going to hit him, give him the bump and run, and that's exactly what happened. And man, it escalated. So some guys can do this cleaner than others, but either way, at the end of the day, you're wrecking the guy in front of you so you can get the win. Now, you see it kind of setting up. He's charging the corner faster than you can take that corner because he knows he's about to ricochet off the back of Logano. So he comes in hot, bumps the more left half of Logano, puts Logano into a slide in the corner. Logano's wrecking out. Dylan cuts under to avoid being also in that wreck. He's downshifting, doing what he can do. Well, at the same time, at this point, this opens the door for Hamlin, who's sitting in 3rd place and who was behind Dylan. So he's got the low line coming up the track. He's following the race line, and Dylan, and everything that was happening, he cuts a little low and he right hooks Hamlin right after he bumped Logano. Obviously, the Logano hit was intentional. The Hamlin hit, I don't think it was intentional. It was. I've read a lot of stuff, guys' opinions about it, but I agree with them that it's 2 guys racing for the same spot. So he right hooks him, Hamlin in the wall, and gets the win. Now, this is where it gets tough. So the bump and run is never considered a clean way to race, but Logano's been known to do it. Hamlin has been known to do similar things. He's never fully like bump and run that I know of, but he's had a long history, and I definitely don't know all of his finishes. So he very well could be on that list, but Logano's done it in recent history that we can all remember, and it causes quite a stir. But looking on the outside looking in, you've got RCR that's got 0 chance of getting that car into the playoffs. 0. Kyle Busch was their only hope, and he's been sitting in like 19th in points, 100 points out for most of the season. So with only a few races left, you've got to make something happen to get in these playoffs, and you're that close to it. It's a Hail Mary pass. It wasn't executed super smoothly, but it got it done, and it got him in the playoffs. So listening to the radio calls, obviously the cars that got wrecked are calling for NASCAR to not let him get the win. They credit him with the win. He celebrates, gets the trophy, gets the spot. Mind you, going into this race, Austin Dillon wasn't even sure he was going to have a ride next year, and his grandpa owns the team, and not even sure he's going to have a ride next year. 32nd place in points. Comes out, he's 13th place, locked in the playoffs. So if you're on the Austin Dillon side, clearly it makes sense. Like, you got to do what you got to do. All is fair in these rules. If you're not an Austin Dillon fan and you're a Joey Logano fan or a Denny Hamlin fan or whatever the case may be, you just don't think it's clean racing, you're also right. It's not. But it was definitely a move in desperation, and that's what they had to do, and they admitted that pretty openly, that it was a desperate move. So they did what they had to do, and they get the win, get the playoff points. And yeah, I mean, there's not a lot more you can say about it other than obviously you got some upset drivers. Now, there was a lot after the fact, going into the pits. This is all still under review, but you can see it on the in-car cameras. Logano, he pulls up in Austin Dillon's pit box where you've got, friends, family, kids are in there, and he just starts ripping it, revving it up, dumping the clutch, burning the tires, pissed off teenager, and then NASCAR officials shut him down pretty quick as he rolls forward. Creates an incredibly dangerous situation for pit road. That brings up the other argument, why are people out on a hot pit road? I agree with that as well. You just can't win no matter what your opinion is on this. You're never going to get somebody who agrees with all sides on this deal. Personally, I'm kind of in the middle on all of it. Had he dumped somebody who never raced that way before and wasn't known for dumping people when they need to, I would have been more upset with it. I don't know, say Barry. Say Barry's leading it and he dumps Barry, and that's, you know what I mean? But to dump Logano, that's karma coming back, because he's done it to people too. Hamlin got mixed up in it. Like I said, I don't think it was intentional. Either way, no matter how you look at it, as of right now, unless they take the win from him, which I doubt they'll do this late in the game, you're going to see, at least in the first round of playoffs, you're going to see Austin Dillon fighting in the playoffs, so in the top 16. There's obviously a lot of commentary, a lot of drivers not happy and trying to bite their tongue or whatever the case may be after the fact, but yeah, so here's what Logano had to say post-race.
Apparently he can come from 5 car lengths back and completely wreck someone and then wreck another one to the line, and we're going to call that racing. It's cool. That's fun.
Take that away?
Yeah, they won't.
Did you think that was coming, Joey?
No, when you get like that far back ahead, that's 3 to 4 car lengths ahead into 3. I didn't even back up the entry. I was like, I'll just wrap the bottom here, I'm good. And he just drives in so hard. Obviously he didn't make the turn because he hit me, and then the 11 was going to win the race. So he had no intentions to race. I beat him fair and square on the restart, and he just pulls a chicken shit move. He's a piece of crap. The kid, he sucks. He's sucked his whole career, and now he's going to be in the playoffs, and good for him, I guess.
So there you go. Obviously he's not a happy guy, but it is what it is. It's part of racing. It's part of the way it's set up now. When you have to race your way in, these desperation moves are going to happen. And that's on NASCAR at the end of the day. They created this playoff format. This is how they want to run it. This is the stuff you're going to get once in a while. And they missed the opportunity to call foul during the race before the celebration. So I also get that too from a spectator standpoint, like in a business standpoint, is after all that and that win, are they going to shut it down and say, no, you didn't win, and go back and look at timing and scoring or whatever the case may be? Yeah, I don't know. It's a tough call for NASCAR because it is on their format. It's obviously bringing in a lot of attention, which is good for business, whether it's positive or negative. Attention is attention. So after the fact, it looks like they awarded Hamlin the second place finish on that, even though when he crossed the line, I believe he was 5th, since he got dumped in the corner and he was able to correct, and he was jammed up for sure, but he was able to get across the line. Man, I don't know. There's so many sides to this, but that's where we're at with it. We'll see what happens through the week, if they take the race win from him or what they're gonna do. Going back the night before, the old truck race, that was a pretty good race. NASCAR trucks at Richmond. This was the season finale for their regular season, so this was the last chance to get in the playoffs for them. A lot of cautions, 9 or 10 of them through the night. Lots of tore up race cars, truck, a lot of bench sheet metal. But going into it, stage 1, Christian Eckes gets the stage win there. Obviously, he's already locked in the playoffs. Timon Jetski gets the second stage win, and he has a terrible pit stop, getting penalized to have to go back to the field because the tire changer threw the tire and it went outside their pit stall and started rolling down pit lane. So he has to go to the back of the pack. He ends up working his way back up throughout the night, but stage 2, Enfinger takes the lead. He's got new tires. He holds them off for stage 2 win. Timon Jetski gets the actual race win after going back to the back of the field in stage 2. Had some time to make some moves happen, but he was fast. He was fast all night. All those guys that got the stage wins and then Timon Jetski, they're already locked into the playoffs, so it's going to be pretty obvious. That's going to be your crowd at the end of all this, probably, with their consistency that they've got in their programs. Moving over to some sprint car stuff, World of Outlaws this week was the 63rd annual Knoxville Nationals. which was a great thing to have during the Olympic break leading up to the NASCAR weekend. But you have you got a bunch of nights of racing, and then Saturday night for the national final there in Knoxville. So going into it, the first night of racing, Giovanni Chelsea, he gets the feature win, guaranteeing him a spot in Saturday night's main, $12K prize on that one. Following night, Kyle Larson gets a feature win, same purse on that, $12,000. It guarantees him in the A main on Saturday. Friday night, first heat, McKenna Haas, McKenna Hayes had a bad crash. Talk about this for a second. She hit the wall, turn one, flipped a bunch of times, bent the chassis of that car really bad. Just a hard hit. She was transported to Knoxville Hospital for chest pains and to do some evaluations. Looking at the updates today, or I guess it was late last night, she did send out a video to everybody. She's back home now. I'm thankful for all the thoughts and prayers, and hopefully we'll see her back in a car soon. She was running strong, strong mid-pack, and just got up on the cushion and couldn't get back out of it. And it was, that car's totaled. I mean, that was wild. The chassis bent all over the place, and it was a hard hit, but glad she's all right. Moving on to the feature on Friday night, Mr. Donnie Schatz gets the win on that one. He dominated pretty much the whole feature. $4,000 on the line for that one. And then going into Saturday night finals, good battle for most of the field in their relative positions. You had a good battle. You had Larson starting out basically on the pole, second and third place. Chelsea and Macedo going at it back and forth. That was super fun to watch. Those guys get after it. Larson holds off the field for all 50 laps, just like he did in the previous Knoxville win, and he gets the win on that one. So Kyle Larson still doing what he can do, ends up winning that $190,000 purse for that win. Mind you, this was after he qualified in Richmond, jumps on the plane, goes back down, wins a sprint car race, then goes back, the next morning to get ready for the Cup Series. I don't know how he does it. I don't know when he sleeps, how he stays mentally focused. The guy's an animal, but he got it done once again, showing what it's all about. $190,000 more for that team. This puts him in, I think this is his third title for Knoxville Nationals. So pretty much undefeated in all the ones he's competed in now. So he's just making it happen, getting it done. So congratulations to him on that. Here's what he had to say after the race.
It doesn't get any bigger than Knoxville Nationals. So it feels great to, like you mentioned, lead back-to-back, 50 lappers from start to finish, because there's the best sprint car drivers in the world lined up behind me, and they don't make it easy. So yeah, it was a tricky race there. I know at times maybe it doesn't look like it, but those lappers were just fast enough around the bottom, and I felt like I was just slowing myself down, and was able to get clear of a couple of them and get rolling back near the bottom, and the middle actually came in. So I felt like I strung together some good laps there at the end. So hats off to Paul, Trevor, Doug. It's, everybody knows we've been really bad this year here until the last couple weeks. So, they've been working extremely hard. It's been a very disappointing year to our standards, and, for them to just never give up, myself to never give up either, is tough to do. So, like I said, they work so hard, and all this, goes to them, for continuing to push and try and get better and better, because all these teams are racing 90 times a year. We're only getting to race, 25 to 30. So we have to work extra hard. So it makes these wins feel extra great.
All right, moving on, Silver Crown Jennerstown Speedway. This one was super cool because they've never raced this track before. They haven't been on pavement in Pennsylvania in some crazy amount of time, like 20 years or something like that. Half-mile pavement track, super cool track. Pretty well dominated by Cody Swanson. He gets the race win. There was a lot of good stuff going on. Give a shout out to Taylor Fern, who got that 555 car inside the top 5 after starting out mid-pack. Honestly, had some super good momentum. Probably could have been a podium with a few more laps. From what I could see watching, it's hard to tell, like on some of these shorter tracks, but the momentum looked good on that Taylor Fern car, that 555, so awesome to see. And then obviously Cody Swanson getting it done. Not a whole lot more I could say about that. Just cool to see Silver Crown's back on asphalt. Honestly, personally, I like to see that a lot more than the dirt. I do like them on dirt as well, but something about the nose cone, the slick tires, like those cars just look mean. They run good. it's just fun to watch. So congratulations there. And that kind of sums up the race recap for this episode. A lot of drama at the NASCAR side. And then we had the Knoxville Nationals, and we've got a lot more racing coming up this weekend. IndyCar's back. Stay tuned for more on that. All right, let's start out with some Formula One news. So this one has to do with the whole Andretti Global going into F1 thing. Liberty Media, the Formula One ownership group, they did confirm in a roundabout way that they are being investigated by the U.S. Department of Justice for their role in denying the application and approval for adding Andretti Global and the GM partnership into Formula One. So this goes a long ways back, but Andretti's basically been approved by the FIA and all the other parties needed to expand into Formula One. But they were shut down by Liberty Media. Since they compete in the United States, this allowed, and they're based in the United States, basically out of the Liberty Media Group. This allowed Andretti Global to file a complaint with the Congress and the DOJ, kind of see what they could look into with this issue. There's a lot of fallout from that now with the Justice Department investigating. So not a lot of details on what the outcome will be, but they're definitely in the scope of being checked out for their role and everything there. So we'll see how that goes. If we hear more, we'll let you guys know on that one. Moving into IndyCar, just a quick news thing here. Alexander Rossi is fully released to race at Gateway this weekend, so that's pretty awesome after his thumb surgery that he had to have when he broke his thumb in Toronto. So he will be back. So good news there. Good news for that number 7 McLaren team. The only other thing we have for IndyCar is this crazy internet rumor going around that this new Audi F1 program is trying to recruit Alex Palou from Chip Ganassi Racing. Sounds like he's being headhunted a little bit, but obviously these are just internet rumors, so I don't know if I put a lot of faith in that, but it is out there, so we'll mention it. Moving into NASCAR news, rumor is Lee Diffie from the IndyCar commentary side, NBC Sports analyst overall, obviously worked the Olympics the whole time, but he will be returning to motorsports broadcasting, joining the NBC team at Daytona on August 24th. So that's exciting to hear. We'll get to see and hear Lee Diffie's commentary on the NASCAR races. Another thing, there was a rule change affecting wet weather tires. Sounds like NASCAR will not dictate when teams change from dry to wet tires during wet weather events now. Given that it's a non-super speedway race where the wet tire is available, this change will leave strategy in the hands of the teams, which we all can agree is better off for the quality of racing you're going to see. That being said, there is going to be a safety protocol. They're not going to let drivers and teams do dumb like one-off decisions that's going to put any kind of safety in jeopardy. But it'd be interesting to see how this plays out for the strategy side of things. Just one more variable we can go with. Mentioned earlier on the race recap, Daniel Suarez had a good week. He was re-signed for another year with Trackhouse Racing in that number 99 car. So congratulations to him staying there. Obviously, he's still got some skills. He got that stage win. Trackhouse has got a pretty good program under him, so it sounds like another year there wouldn't be a bad thing for him. He also just got married and everything else, so he's having a pretty good summer. Last little bit of news, we've got NASCAR World Legacy Motor Club has added Jacob Canner to their staff as a new director of competition. For those who don't know, Canner has a successful career in vehicle performance direction at GM. So bringing over a GM guy to run their performance division in competition for the Legacy Motor Club. So we'll see how that pans out, making some changes around there. We talked before about how some staff members were let go. We still haven't really heard the whole fallout from that. I also haven't really researched it enough to probably know if it has been out there, but it hasn't made big headlines. So that wraps up where we're at for the news section this week.
Standing here now with Mel Kenyon, a former 7-time DUSAC Midget champion here at Williams Grove tonight. Mel, you've had to put a lot of laps on this old speedway here in Mechanicsburg, Pennsylvania.
Yes, we were here for the last 2 years, and 3 years actually. And we were very fortunate to finish second 2 years ago and won the thing last year. So we're very, very pleased with our effort here. And we hope to do the same thing again tonight.
Is there a kind of a mystique about winning at Williams Grove? Is it a track that you mark down as being a place that you want to really win at more than maybe some other track?
Well, it's a very famous racetrack, and that makes a big difference. And surely we'd like to win here because of its reputation.
Well,
Time for some history. This one is going to be a good one. It's one of my personal favorites. This week we're going to talk about Mel Kenyon, the King of Midgets, whatever you want to call him. He's a legend. So let's dive right in. Born April 15th, 1933 in DeKalb, Illinois. He's nicknamed the King of Midgets, Miraculous Mel, and he's also the champion of midget racing, as far as anyone's concerned. He attended his first auto race in 1946. He began his racing career in 1954, racing a 1937 Chevy Coupe stock car. The car was destroyed in a wreck that was caused by a tire blowout, so short-lived car on that one. But he did race modified stocks from 1955 to 1958. And then he kind of found his love for the open-wheel midget racing after that. Got involved in the Florida Midget Championship in 1962 and won that. This was his first championship of many. That was the same year he joined the USAC Midget Series and finished 5th in the points, only running half the season because he entered late. He ends up finishing 5th overall. So that was kind of a sign that this guy's going to have something. 1963, back when they had the Turkey Night Grand Prix, finished 2nd in points on that one. 1964, 2 years after he joined USAC, he won the National USAC Midget Championship. He was also working on his Champ Car, open wheel stuff, which now known as IndyCar. He competed in both USAC Midgets and the USAC National Championship in 1964, but won that Midget Championship then. Then we move on to 1965, and Kenyon made an attempt at the Indy 500, but he did fail to qualify that year. Later that year, 1965, race at Langhorne Speedway in Pennsylvania. Mel blew up an engine, causing a huge oil mess covering the car, the track, and worst of all, Mel, causing a big old crash and fire. Several other racers were involved in that one, including Joe Leonard, who actually rescued Mel from the car that was on fire. Mel was unconscious and severely burned. After this accident, Mel had multiple surgeries at San Antonio Burn Clinic, losing fingers on his left hand, kind of changing how he would approach racing from then on. Fortunately, Mel's still being with us. There's some good stories. Yeah, this is kind of what happened in that scenario from his own personal experience.
Starting the race, we were doing really well. I started, I think, in 12th position, and we were doing really well, and all of a sudden the motor started to rattle, and I stuck my hand up in the air to tell the guys behind me I was in trouble, headed for the infield, but being a sort of a round racetrack, it had a mind of its own. It turned around and went out and slammed off the outside wall with the left side tires, and turned back around and was down almost to 30 mile an hour. And Jim Hurtubise, who was burned the year before me, and Ralph Liguori were having a private battle with each other and rubbing wheels and all that, and all of a sudden there I was. They didn't see me soon enough because it was kind of a round racetrack. And so Ralph Liguori plowed into me from behind and slammed my head against the roll bar and knocked me out, and they punctured the fuel tank, the first one to break a fuel bladder. Those two guys, all being still awake, they bailed out of their cars and ran off, left me sitting there in that burning race car as it slid into a freshly graded infield, and the flames almost went out. But then as it sat there, they began to pick up again. And Joe Leonard, who was leading the IndyCar race at that time, saw my problem, and he pulled in the infield, jumped out of his car. He had a fire suit on, one of the good guys. And two guys in jeans and t-shirts from the infield came out to help, and they tried to get me out of that race car. Steering wheels did not disconnect from the race car at that time, and so they couldn't get me out, and it got too hot, and they had to leave. And so finally a Jeep showed up with fire bottles in it. Everybody grabbed a bottle and put the fire out. But I was sitting in that fire for 3 minutes, and as they took me out, I was so slippery they lost me into that freshly graded dirt. And went to the Lower Bucks County Hospital there in Philadelphia. And I was burnt kind of bad, about 60% burnt. 40% third degree. My wife, being a good Christian gal, told me that there was somebody that could help me along the way, and I said, "You're silly." She says, "No, there is somebody that'll do it." And so with her help, I turned what was left of my life over to the Lord, asking Him to do with it what He wanted to do with it, not what I wanted to do with it. And believe it or not, my body cleaned up and started to heal from being a messy pussy, if you will, mess, to waddling out of the hospital in just 1 week later. They told me it was going to take me 3 months of rehab to get myself back in shape, but at home doing it myself, I was ready in 1 month's time. Climbed into a race car at 7 months after the bonfire. 8 months after the fire, I was back at Indianapolis Motor Speedway in an Indy car. Brother Don, my dad, and I figured out how to steer the race car with no fingers. You got to hang onto a steering wheel somehow. And we came up with a spinner method like a farm tractor has nowadays, and a lot of passenger cars had before power steering. But we ran on 3 cylinders for 70 laps and finished 5th. Hallelujah, 5th place. First time back.
So he comes back 1966, modified gloves so he can drive. During this season, he had 12 consecutive first or second place finishes, finished second in the points championship, qualified for the Indy 500, and finished 5th in that Indy 500 in 1966. So he came back hungry to win and just showed his true spirit. He also got very religious during this time, kind of opened up his faith. So whatever you believe in that, obviously he had a purpose to what he wanted to do, and it really helped his career along. Then we move on. Let's move on to 1967. Mel won 17 of the 49 midget features in that season, and he won the national midget title from USAC once again. 1968 Indy 500, he qualified and finished 3rd, and he won the midget title again in 68. Got a podium at the Indy 500. 1969.
We've had a spin back here, Sid, and about 3 cars spun around. 1 car is on the wall. It is car number 23. That's driven by Mel Kenyon, the Sprite car. I have my glasses on him, and I believe Mel is just about to get out of the car. We have had about 3 cars. Now we've got a 4th into the wall. Has crashed. 2 more have crashed.
I spun in Steve Krisloff's oil when he blew his engine, STP slick stuff. But I thought I was down slow enough, but I got in his oil and it turned around and just bumped the wall enough to pop the tire off the wheel. No damage. Unhooked, slid back, was ready to get out of the race car when I looked up, and here comes Gordon, John Cockmurray, and ready, John Rutherford, who had gotten the same oil that I got into, and here they come right at me at 180 miles an hour.
And I saw him coming, and and so I dropped back down into the cockpit in a crouched position. And he went up over my nose and left some tire tracks on top of my helmet.
I could have lost my head.
And the list goes on and on with this guy. 1972, Mel was driving the Eagle car, which was Foyt Coyote powered. He was leading the race at Michigan Speedway. He ran out of fuel, had to coast to the finish. He ultimately finished 3rd, but had he not ran out of fuel, this would have been his actual first Champ Car / IndyCar win. His Champ Car career consisted of 65 starts and 8 Indy 500s. Although he dominated the wins in the midgets, he never got a good chance to celebrate that first place in Champ Car. 1973 was his last Indy 500. He placed 4th, taking his Indy 500 career stats to 4 of the 8 races he took part in were top 5 finishes. So overall, he ran really well. He just never got to taste the milk. So it's unfortunate, because that would have been awesome to have him as part of that club. But either way, he's the king of the midgets. 1975 goes on, wins the Turkey Night Grand Prix. This was on a pavement track, so pavement midget race, where all the previous ones were on dirt. So that was kind of cool. He obviously adapted, had that Champ Car experience, which is all pavement, and he gets that win. Ends up going on and just continues to race and has fine success in so many different areas and everything else. He was inducted into the Midget Racing Hall of Fame in 1984, and following him being introduced in the Hall of Fame in 1985, he went on to win the championship again. We're talking 20 years after he won the first one. In 1993, Kenyon won the Indianapolis Speed Track title at the age of 60. Racing a midget car there. He had some stuff to take care of, personal life stuff, so he took a break from the national circuits after some health things.
Winchester is fast and sometimes dangerous, even for the most experienced of veterans. That's 7-time USAC midget champion Mel Kenyon into the wall hard in the first midget heat race. Although knocked unconscious, he suffered no other injuries.
Takes a break from the national circuit, but continued doing local track races and events based around the Indiana area well into his 70s. He won the Midwest Championship for midgets in 1995, 1996, and 1997. Mind you, he's, mid-60s at this point. 2005, he raced a full schedule against his son, Bryce Kenyon, and Bryce won the championship that year. So it's in the genetics, without a doubt. He's a legend. Looking at the numbers, I always like to scroll through the numbers here and see what we've got. Achievement-wise, 7 USAC midget titles, so 7-time champion, 8 USAC midget second place point finishes, so 8 other seasons that he could have won the title. That is crazy. He was inducted into the Motorsports Hall of Fame in 2003, which, mind you, he was still racing. At that point, he had 111 feature wins, 131 second place finishes, 107 third place finishes, 81 fourth place finishes, and 69 fifth place finishes. So total of 419 top 5 finishes. And he also had another 688 top 10 finishes if you look at the numbers. So the guy is a legend in what he does in his craft. And mind you, this is all with an injury that he sustained in the 60s, So I already mentioned Motorsports Hall of Fame in 2003, the International Motorsports Hall of Fame also in 2003. So back-to-back Hall of Fame inductee there. National Midget Auto Racing Hall of Fame. And then IRP, one of the greatest tracks out there, Indianapolis Raceway Park. They host the annual Mel Kenyon Classic midget car race in his honor. And he has raced in this as well since the 2000s. Obviously, he's hung up his hat now, but he's still with us, still telling stories, and the guy's just, it's just a legend of the sport. So we were thankful enough to see a great racing career from him and see everything happen through his injuries, and he continued to dominate. So just happy that we can cover Mel and Miraculous Mel, a King of Midgets, however you want to call him today. And from there, we'll wrap this one up, and appreciate you taking the time to listen. As always, like, subscribe, try to push some more stuff out on the YouTubes, and yeah, we'll just keep this thing rolling, and stay safe, and thanks for tuning in.
I tell you mentioned the name Mel Kenyon, former Indy 500 veteran. Boy, there's a lot to talk about when we talk about Mel Kenyon.
Kenyon up top, looks for 4th place on the backstretch of the 28th laps. Gets a nose out in front of Norm Young and takes the position.
We have won 14 championships, 10 national championships, 384 feature wins that we can remember. From working on them to driving them, driving the race car 61 years, but technically there's a couple more than that, not legally.
Thank you for sharing your time with us. If you enjoyed today's episode, make sure to subscribe and leave us a review wherever you listen to your podcasts. Don't forget to follow us at HistoricHotLaps on X and all your other social platforms for the latest updates and sneak peeks into upcoming episodes. You can reach out to us directly at HistoricHotLaps@gmail.com. Send us your feedback, questions, comments, opinions, and additional subject matter you'd like us to cover. Thanks for tuning in.